Oh, new champion? Oh my god. The chat's going too fast. I can't click on it. Oh, and actually cards. Oh, wait. Oh my god. Wait. We gotta watch this. Oh, shit, dude. Okay, give me a second. Okay, fine. We'll watch it here. Oh, shit.
Justice takes wing.
No, quality. Come on. I need to see this properly. We got it. We gotta look at this. Okay. 5 mana, 3/4. Or I really understand it. Scout. What does Scout do? Play Summon Valor. When I've seen you attack 4 times. 4 times? Okay, that seems alright.
Valor, to me!
Oh, Challenger and what is this? What is Scout, dude? That's Scout, right? That's Scout. Okay,
Valor,
what is...
to me!
Summon Loyal Badger Bear. 4 mana, 4/1. So it is Demacia. The first time only Scout units attack each round, ready your attack. Oh my god, that's so dope, dude! What the fuck? That's so cool! That is so cool, dude!
We're not done yet.
Oh my god, that's crazy! Wait. Slow down. I was like too focused. And what about, you have a last breath effect, don't you? Last summon Loyal Badger Bear, which is a 4/4. Oh, that is so fucking sick, dude.
We're not done yet.
Yes, so he blocks there, and then you get a 4/4. Oh my god, that's sick. Wait.
Still heart, steady aim. No one escapes my...
Summon Valor, challenging the strongest enemy. Oh shit. Oh, this is so sick, dude.
Fly
this
swiftly.
card is so cool.
Kill swiftly.
Oh my, what about this guy? What do you do? And it's every time she attacks! Every time! Oh my god, that's so sick! That is so fucking sick. Alright, so that was my 12-year-old and Christmas-like reaction. Now that 24 hours have passed, I can take a more analytical approach at this, and I can give you guys my perspective regarding the new champion, the new cards, and the scout mechanic. What I expect the power level to be, and what I want to build around with these cards, their deck building potential mainly, and all that good stuff. Before I jump into this, I want to preface this by saying that it's hard in card games to actually gauge the impact that a card is going to have over the meta when we don't have the full information of the set to begin with. There's a lot of things lacking, like more Demacian cards that could potentially synergize with this, other cards from other regions that could work with this as well, and just generally speaking, not being able to try out the card as well. You know, this is all theory, right? So take it with a grain of salt. Having that said, I got a lot to say, because not only, you know, gauging how strong a card like Quinn can be, but also what I like, the most important thing for me is the fun factor, right? The deck building potential, synergies, all that stuff. I think Quinn is a fascinating champion. I really like her design, and I'm very excited to try out all sorts of different ideas revolving around her. But first, let's actually talk a little bit about Quinn and what she does and how powerful I think she is and all that good stuff. Quinn is a 5 mana champion, so the same price value as 5 mana Garen from Demacia. And if you look at the stats, she does provide you with the same amount of stats as Garen does, because a lot of people are talking about her stats being pretty low, but that is because she's spreading herself across 2 different bodies. And generally speaking, in Runeterra, that tends to be a more powerful effect, or a more powerful trait for a unit to have than just packing all the stats in one body alone. Quinn is a 5 mana 3/4, which is significantly understated, naturally, that says, when I'm summoned, summoned Valor. In case you don't know, Valor is a 2-mana, 2/1 with Challenge and Scout as well. So she says, or her level up requirement says, when I've seen you attack 4 times. Now, initially, this seems like ridiculous. Like, you're playing a 5-mana unit and she wants to see you attack 4 times. The game is probably going to be over by that point, or she will have been removed from the board, so you're never going to level her up, right? But when you understand how the scout mechanic works, things get really, really interesting. Now, initially, a lot of people's perceptions revolving around Quinn is that it's pretty funny because they, navigate around the 2 opposing sides of the spectrum, right? There's people who think that she is just downright broken because they see Scout, and Scout kind of equals Rally, and having multiple attacks in a game like Runeterra is pretty scary, and people are just like, oh my god, OP, this champion is OP, this champion is gonna be the meta game, and people freaking out. And then you got other people who are like, yeah, this champion sucks. They're a bit pessimistic. They're like, oh yeah, well, it can attack twice, but it's a 3/4. It's never going to get to attack cleanly, even if you do have a challenger, and you have to give it something like Sunporch maps to, be able to attack through. And I don't know, it feels underwhelming and all that. I fall more in the middle of this. I believe Quinn is going to be really good. That is my first initial take. I think Quinn it has a lot of potential. I think she is really interesting as a champion because of the scout mechanic as a whole. We're going to take a look at the other scout cards, but one of the things that I want to talk about first in this video is the scout mechanic itself, what it represents, and at least, through my initial impression of it, and what ways can we, enhance this and capitalize on said keyword. So we're gonna hop on over to the client and we're gonna take a look at some cards here. As we're gonna start off with Demacia, and I'm gonna take 2. Basically, I'm gonna divide the discussion revolving around Scout into 2 different aspects when it comes to things that can enhance said ability. So, at its core, what Scout is basically like double attack. Not double attack from Lucian, which is basically as he clashes into something, he strikes twice. No, it's a unit being able to attack twice in the same turn, right? That's inherently what Scout is. Scout is, it's a double attack with a certain restriction. The restriction being that the first attack can only be produced by units with Scout. If you attack with something else that doesn't have Scout, then all of a sudden you lose that perk, right? But if you do only attack with Scouts, you're basically having units that can attack twice per turn. So this is very similar to effects like Zed spawning a shadow as he's attacking. What I mean by this is that an effect like Scout is going to benefit significantly, in fact, double as much as other cards from buffs. Because if you give Quinn or any unit with Scout a buff like Riposte, for example, you're giving that unit +3 attack and barrier, and that unit can attack twice that turn. So the general effect of Riposte is inherently doubled, right? And Riposte specifically is a very, very powerful effect to apply onto. It's perhaps the best buff, at least when it comes to medium, because obviously we could talk about the Freljord 8 mana Battle Fury one, which is pretty hilarious. But Riposte is, from a competitive standpoint, the more plausible one, and perhaps the most powerful one, because you're giving the unit barrier, which means that if your opponent trades into it, it will not take damage, and you're able to attack twice with a +3 attack boost, which is incredibly strong, right? So Riposte onto Valor, for example, is really neat because you're generating a 2/1 with challenge. You're making a 5 attack challenger that can attack twice in the same turn, can deal some incredible crippling damage to the opponent's board state, and can allow you to, ease up the opponent's defenses so you can just start piling through with the rest of your units. Now, one of the big weaknesses of a mechanic like Scout is that because it is a very powerful effect, it is incorporated onto units with a rather weak body, right? Quinn, even though she spreads out over 2 bodies, her original body is a 3/4. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, you're not going to attack with her 2 times in a turn, so you're never going to level up. Well, you're not really aiming to attack with Quinn. Like, the thing about Quinn is you want... this is a pretty big on the screen, right? Like, you guys can't actually see the entire card. I just realized that. Let me actually tweak this a little bit. in the middle of the thing. Now, let me see if I can actually do this. Come on. Damn. Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me okay. What? Okay, so it's I gotta make it a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay, let's do it a little bit smaller. There we go. Attaboy. Maybe making it a little bit bigger. Professional video. All right, that's more like it. So with Quinn, you generally don't want to attack with her most of the time, and that's what I predict will happen with the way you play with this champion. Valor is the one who's going to be doing the attacking. The fact that this thing has Challenger is tremendous because it allows you to get use of your Scout keyword by getting a free attack off with it, and dragging up one of the opponent's threats that's maybe weakened or something that Valor can trade evenly into, and thus giving you really good value. Now, one of the things about Scout as a keyword as well is that the name Scout is actually very fitting, because Scout is a great way for you to play around with the initiative system and scout out what your opponent is potentially aiming to do that turn. Because what Scout is, it shares the same traits as burst speed spells. Like a lot of more experienced players in Runeterra can go for a cheap burst spell and then pass over initiative to the opponent. Because if you play a burst spell and you pass over initiative to the opponent passes, you're not you can still do something, even though the burst spell doesn't consume your own initiative. It does make it so that you've done something that turn, so that if you pass and your opponent passes, you can still do more stuff. This may seem a little bit confusing for beginners, but it's a very important trait for high-level competitive play, because the initiative system is, at its core, one of the most important aspects of Legends of Runeterra. So being able to pass over initiative to the opponent without really having committed your attack yet, especially if you have more challengers on the board, amongst other things, makes it so that the opponent is like, okay, do I do something now? Do I pass out of fear of his attack and then have him pass back because he has a more developed board state than I do, and I burn all this mana that I could have used otherwise? It leads to a lot of very, very awkward scenarios for your opponent. Like, Scout is really, really neat in that sense. It gives you the ability to be more reactive. And when you're able to play after your opponent with your mana as they are consuming theirs, that always gives you some sense of an advantage. And I think Scout is really going to contribute to this. And I like Quinn a lot because of it. I think Quinn can be combined with many different things. So let's actually take a look at some other ways we can, we're talking about buffs, right? Like we have buffs from all sorts of different regions. We can buff these units, but one of the key buffs that I really like from Piltover and Zon, it's been talked about, is the Sump Works map. Sump Works map is a 2-mana burst spell that grants an ally elusive. Obviously, granting elusive to a Scout unit is incredibly powerful because it makes it either very unlikely or just not likely or just not blockable, and thus you can get double attacks with the Scout unit. So if you give it elusive and then you give it some sort of attack buff, all of a sudden you're just duplicating the amount of damage you're dealing, and it can make for a very, very big threat for the opponent, especially if you apply this onto a champion like Quinn. You're also dodging the likes of Purify as well, and it's a very, very powerful combination that I definitely will explore myself, and I definitely expect others to explore too, right? So that's one of the things, one of the two things that I want to talk about regarding ways to enhance the Scout ability, at least from an offensive standpoint, right? The other one is, we're talking about buffs, but I also want to talk a little bit about rally effects as well. This is something that has come to mind to many. Combining this card with likes of Relentless Pursuit is really neat because these are the best ways to actually work for a Quinn level up, right? Initially, if you look at Quinn's level up, it looks like a very unlikely thing. You need to attack. You need to see. She needs to see you attack 4 times, right? And that feels impossible. But when you take the Scout mechanic into consideration, she basically has a very similar requirement to the likes of Garen, right? Because Garen has to strike twice. So if you play Garen on turn 5, you attack with him, and then on turn 7, you attack with him again. That's like the standard way of leveling up Garen, right? With Quinn, it's kind of like the same, but there are ways to cheat. There are ways to have a shortcut at that. Given they are harder to achieve than the likes of Garen, because Garen just is something as simple as single combat can accomplish that. With Quinn, it may be a little bit more difficult, but I think the payoff is extremely potent. Relentless Pursuit enables you to apply this on your opponent's turn, and if you get that rally effect happening on your turn, all of a sudden your scouts can attack first, and then you get 2 attacks on your opponent's turn. So again, we're in a situation in which, like the same as buffs, rally effects are in a way inherently duplicated, though not exactly, not as much as the buffs, because you're getting an extra attack with only your scout units, but in a way they are, right? And more so than Relentless Pursuit, one of the cards that I really want to try this with is actually Katarina. Why? Because I believe that this could be a really neat combination. You could go for an early game Katarina level up, right? And attack with her on turn 3 and get her to level up. And then once you play Quinn on turn 5 and you get your couple of attacks off, first with your Valor and then with whatever other units, because you want to keep Quinn safe. The next turn, you can play Katarina, rally, and one of the great things about Katarina, what I like a lot about her with Quinn, is that she's pretty much a free attack. Like, if you don't have a good board state to attack, she's a safe attack. Why? Because she has quick attack, and as soon as she strikes, you recall her. So she won't die in the process, right? She will always, when she's attacking, Katarina will always return back to your hand unless, before the opposing unit strikes into her, unless you are, frostbitten or something like that. So, because of this, Katarina makes it so that she makes it very easy for Quinn to level up. She makes it a very non-committal, non-risky process that comes at the price of a bit of a tempo sacrifice at the early stages of the game, which you have to, and that's where the deck building gets interesting, right? Because you have to design a deck that can actually make up for that minor lack of tempo early on with a deck that can potentially spread out, or a deck that has good buffs, good ways to build back up a board. But Quinn, as she spreads out into different bodies, is already providing you with good utility for that, right? So that's basically, when it comes to my initial impressions and ways to build around this champion, I want to try her with many different things, like Piltover and Zon with Sunforks maps, a strong Demacia core with Riposte. I want to see if she works with Katarina. I want to try her out with Ashe Frostbite. People have been overrating this interaction a little bit, in my opinion, because the thing about scouts in Ashe is, you want Ashe to attack. You're not giving Ashe double attack, so it's not really as exacerbated as people make it out to be. But there's still some neat things about Quinn with Frostbite mechanics in general, as if you can weaken your opponent's defenses that turn, and you can really capitalize on your ability to attack twice. Basically, anything that can enhance your scout units, or anything that can enable the board state to be more in your favor, at least for that turn, to enable you to double attack safely, is going to be what's going to make this champion worth your time. And it's the reason why I find Quinn really, really fascinating. So that's basically my first take on the champion. I'm really excited to build around her. Leveled up Quinn, summoning a Valor every time she attacks. That's what I'm talking about with Katarina. Like, if you can get multiple attacks with Katarina, then you're spawning a Valor every time, and that's when shit gets crazy, and I can't wait to try that out, man. I cannot wait. I'm so excited for that. So that's my initial impressions regarding Quinn. Overall power level, I think she will be good. I think she will be solid, but it's early to say, and we'll just have to wait and see. But the most important thing for me is the fun factor. And from a design perspective, I think Quinn is fascinating, super interesting, and I am really excited to try her out. So, having that said, that is Quinn right there. We are going to move on to the other cards that were revealed. Blinding Assault will be Quinn's signature spell, and it's a 2-mana Summon of Valor for 2. It's not really that great. I mean, it's basically, you're getting a Fleet Feather Tracker for 1 more mana that has Scout, but a slow spell speed. I don't know. It's not terrible by any means. It's useful. It's not a bad card, but it's not also an amazing card by any means. But it's definitely better than Death Lotus from Katarina, for example. So it works out in that regard. Now let's take a look at the other 4 cards that were revealed from the from the new set. They're all scouts. And we're going to start off with Moose Scout, aka the Great Horn Companion, a 5-mana 4/5 with Scout. Initially, this card seems pretty bad, and honestly, it is. It's got slightly more stats than Quinn, but it's not a champion. It has no potential to level up, and it doesn't spread out over 2 bodies, so it's just worse at everything. But one of the important things, because that's basically all that I would have to say about this card, there's not much more to talk about it, but something very important to note is that it's a Demacian 5-drop, which means it enters the pool of Remembrance. So now Remembrance will no longer be just Radiant Guardian, the Cavalry, or the Lancer. It can also be the Companion. And a turn 3 Great Horn Companion can be a pretty damn strong pull, because you're basically getting a 4/5 that can attack twice on turn 3. So that can be really nasty. And I think that's going to make Remembrance and potentially Mage Seeker decks in general more powerful, even though it does incorporate variance to the mix, right? It enhances the variance of the card. I think that's the most relevant aspect of this moose right here. I think it's a moose. But yeah, the Great Horn Companion. Besides that, underwhelming. Not much more to say about it. But I think, the fact that it's a 5-drop is no coincidence in that sense. Let's move on to, oh my god, this card is the highlight for me. I think this card is absolutely amazing. The Grizzled Ranger, a 4-mana 4/1 with Scout, and last breath effect of summoning a loyal Badger Bear, which is an actual card. Yes, that's going to be an interesting subject we're going to tackle at the end of this video. The loyal Badger Bear right there. So Grizzled Ranger is a really neat card because it's everything a Scout unit wants to be. He's kind of like an absolute reckless 4-drop. It's like 4 attack here. You can chump block this, whatever. I don't care. I'm getting this attack for free, and I'm spawning a 4/4 as I die, right? So this is very relevant because Grizzled Ranger does not only fit in decks that can enhance the Scout cards, like for example what I mentioned, with buffs or with rally effects. Grizzled Ranger is also a card that can synergize really well with the likes of Shadow Isles and the Oblivious Islander. Oblivious Islander with Curse Keeper and Grizzled Ranger can be really neat. Grizzled Ranger with Chronicler of Ruin, awesome. Any sort of aristocrat sort of tactic can really benefit from a last breath effect that is so powerful as this one, as it's just really neat, man. Like, it's really flexible. There's so many things you can do with it. I think this card could actually fit my Thresh Lux deck, potentially. And I'm just very excited to try it out in many different builds. I like the fact that we're getting more last breath effects and powerful last breath effects as that, because I love aristocrats. I love strategies that revolve around self-sacrifice and getting benefits off of that. And Grizzled Ranger provides a lot of that and more. Like, 4 attack. The thing is, like, you can't ignore this. It's not like a Curse Keeper that is just a 1/1, right? Like, the thing is, if your opponent has a Curse Keeper and it keeps attacking with you, you can't, you kind of like don't care. You just don't block it. Just take the 1 damage and whatever. It's not going to kill you, right? This thing not only is 4 damage to the face, something that you don't really want it to ignore, it can also block. Like, this thing can block. It's a 4 attack blocker. This thing can trade favorably into other shit and then give you a 4/4 body on top of that. I'm telling you, man, this card is fantastic, and I can't wait to build around it, because it's also got the fun factor in it, right? But it's just really solid. I'm really excited for this card, and I'm happy to. I don't know. I like the art as well. I was just really happy when I saw this one. Very excited about it. The Green Fang Warden is a 3-mana 2/2 with Barrier and Scout. I don't really think too highly of this guy. Yeah, the Barrier is neat, but it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, like, one of the things about Warden is I think it's a prime target for buffs, right? This is an excellent card to buff, but I think because of the fact that it already has a barrier on top of that, giving it riposte is obviously redundant. So I see Green Fang Warden having some potential play in decks outside of like Demacia, right? With stronger, greedier buffs in which you can capitalize on the barrier keyword to get 2 attacks off with them. So really high potential as a buff target, but will be underwhelming otherwise because a 3-mana 2/2 that attacks twice with barrier, yeah, it can be a little bit annoying, but it's not really going to be doing much in that regard. And that's pretty much all I gotta say. It depends on how many buffs we get from this set as well to complement the ones that we have from the core set. Maybe this guy can represent quite a bit more than what I initially expect him to, but nonetheless, fantastic buff target, even though the barrier, it's just something that he has the first turn he enters the board, right? From then onwards, if you don't make use of it, it just fades away, which is also very relevant to point out. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about the Loyal. Why am I saying Loyal? Loyal. English. The Loyal Badger Bear. A 3-mana 4/4. And yes, this is a card. A lot of people were confused and they thought that because of the Grizzled Ranger spawning this thing, it would be like the Cursed Keeper scenario, right? Because the Escaped Abomination is not an actual card. There's no such thing as a 2-mana 4/4. That would be downright broken, right? Well, this guy is a common card. This little rarity, if you go down to, if you go over to Valor right here, you see that Valor has no rarity onto it because Valor is a card exclusively spawned by either QUINN or the Blinding Assault. It's not a card itself, right? There's no such thing as a Valor. But Loyal Badger Bear is a card that will be in the pool and then you can have a 3 of in your deck. And this is a very big deal because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a 3-mana 4/4. I repeat, this is a 3-mana 4/4. If you're scared about this, you are rightfully scared. If you think this is not a big deal because vanilla cards are not, relevant in card games, you are misinformed. Or you lack experience in Legends of Runeterra. You probably are not really, you're just not knowledgeable of the game. This is a massive deal. Let's take a look at the current 3-drops in the game, all right? Let's go here. Let's select these 3 rarities so we don't include champions into the mix, and let's go at 3 mana, all right? By units. These are the 3 mana units that we have, okay? What are the most competitively relevant ones? Arachnoid Sentry, because upon entry stuns an enemy. You have Crimson Curator, but it doesn't really see much play. Frenzied Skitterer is probably one of the most powerful 3-drops in the game, having a very powerful effect upon entry, and a solid stat line of 3/3. Let's take a look at the vanilla 3-drop for now in the set. That is Golden Crushbot. Golden Crushbot has no ability. It's a 3-mana 2/5. That's a total of 7 stats. The Badger Bear is a 4/4, which means that's a total of 8 stats. A difference of 1 stat, especially in an early unit like this, makes the world of a difference. Because if Badger Bear was a 3-mana 4/3, we would not be talking about it. This is a big deal. Just so you guys have a reference, I'm pretty sure all of you know Chump Wump, right? The 4-mana used to be 4/4 from Piltover and Zon. That was pretty much considered to be too efficient as a blocker. And his stat line was just too good for what it did, that it eventually had to be nerfed to a 4/3. We're getting a unit that is a 4/4 at 3 mana. Yeah, he's not giving you 2 mushroom cards, but it's a 3-mana 4/4. Do not underestimate the raw power of a stat line like that provided to you in the early stages of the game, especially in a region like Demacia, which can really benefit from that, or like powerful early game board presence, right? Like, let's take a look at all the cards. We got Iron Harmbringer, which is a 2/4. You get pumped up, with Fearsome, with Ephemerals, but requires, strong synergy and doesn't really see play. We have Lauren Protege, who sees a lot of play and is a challenger, but it has 2 less attack. Like, that's massive, right? What are the relevant cards? Like, he makes Reckless Trifarian look like a fucking fool, dude. Like garbage. Like, this card is just like, okay, 1 more attack, I can't block? Don't sign me up for that, man. Ryan Fang Wolf, 3/2, very powerful effect, but very weak stat line nonetheless. Solitary Monk, has the elusive tag and has a close, almost has that stat line. She's considered to be overstated because of her ability, but doesn't share the stats of the Badger Bear. Senna with quick attack, but 2 health to balance that out, which makes her really, really vulnerable to removal. And just a bunch of 3/3s with decent effects, but just nothing like this thing. Like, this card is gonna bully every other 3-drop under the sun. This thing can trade into anything that's 3 mana or lower favorably on its own with no extra cards to support it. That is insane. That is actually insane. This thing one-shots every other fucking 3-drop, man, with slight exceptions. And it's just, it's incredible. Like, I think, I'm not sure, maybe I'm overreacting to this card. That could very well be the case, but I am concerned that this is the beginning, because one of the things that can happen very easily in card games is a term known as power creep, right? Which means you start introducing a certain like base stat line across a specific card that all of a sudden becomes the norm, right? Like if this thing becomes relevant and it sees a lot of play and it turns into a staple for any competitive Demacia based deck, then in future sets, for cards to, override this thing, they need to share its power level, right? And thus the general power level of 3-drops will eventually rise, leaving all 3-drops pretty much, irrelevant, right? And I think Loyal Badger, what I keep like pronouncing the Y, Loyal Badger Bear can be really, really scary in that sense. I think a 3-mana 4/4, this stat line is crazy for Runeterra. We already saw how efficient Chump Wump was. This thing can trade favorably into 2-mana 3/2s. It can trade favorably into 2/3s. It can trade favorably into anything. A 3/3, like there's nothing in the game at 3 mana that wants to square with this thing, except, like I said, minor exceptions like the Snapper, which barely the skill Snapper as a 5/2 or as a 2/5. I guess you can clash twice into it. But besides that, there's nothing else, man. Like Senna when she's attacking, but that's because he has quick attack. There's just nothing that trades into this. It's on its own league, man. This stat line is too strong, in my opinion. And I think this card is going to be very, very relevant. People say, well, it has no ability. Does it need an ability? Does it actually need an ability? It's a 3-mana 4/4. It doesn't need an ability. It doesn't need a keyword. It doesn't need anything. It just, on turn 3, I have a 4/4 and I'm attacking with it. Like, that's all you need from it. Like, Runeterra is a combat-based game. And a 4/4 on the board is just always going to provide you with good value. Always. So, I am actually concerned about a vanilla creature. I am. I could be wrong. The impact could not be nearly as big as I'm expecting it to be, but I think in any sort of like mid-range based Demacia deck, this guy will be a staple. That's my initial take. But maybe I am incorrect. That is my rundown of the cards. I took a while. I knew I was gonna ramble a little bit with Loyal Badger Bear there. Having that said, I love the Grizzled Ranger. I love this card from a design perspective. I really like this card because it's really neat. The Last Breath is awesome, and I think it's also very strong. But this one is just like more straightforward and it's awesome value. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll have to see the rest of the set. Maybe it could be possible that I am overvaluing this stat line at 3 mana, but it's hard for me to imagine how I'm doing that. Because it's just so damn reliable. When a card doesn't need anything else, like any sort of like outside support, just so you guys understand, this 3-drop, if it clashes with any other 3-drop, that player has to add a spell into the mix to make that trade potentially be even or go in his favor, and that means 2 cards versus 1 in order to at least get an even trade, and that's a big deal. But that's raw, and that Loyal Badger Bear concerns me for the future design of the game. It may seem it's not like that big of an impactful thing, but I think as time passes and new sets are designed, this could be the beginning of an early power creep, which I really hope is not something we venture into. Nonetheless, very, very excited about Quinn. Love her design, and I cannot wait until the new expansion comes out and I can try out all sorts of different ideas from her. And I honestly can't wait for them to reveal Noxus cards, Shadow Isles, Piltover, and Zon. What region are you guys more excited about, and what champions would you like to see? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all I gotta say. Hopefully you found this video useful. And yeah, let me know if you agree with what I said, if you disagree, all that good stuff. We can start some good discussion in the comments down below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Have a solid day. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for daily Runeterra content. I'll see you guys around.